Hello everyone, this is Mr. Yeps. Welcome to today's lesson. But before we continue, let's recap or remind ourselves of our previous lesson. In our previous lesson, we looked at the National Redemption Council, which ousted Busia from power. We also looked at the economic policies that were put in place or implemented by the National Redemption Council. These policies included agricultural revolution, Operation Feed Yourself, production of raw materials, irrigation projects, and rice production. In summary, the economic policies that were implemented by the National Redemption Council were meant to decolonize the economic foundation of Ghana. In other words, the economic policies were meant to reduce the level of Ghana's dependence on other countries for economic survival. These policies were also meant to restructure the economic principles or fundamentals in Ghana in such a way that Ghana would produce almost everything that she needed, whether raw materials for industries or food for consumption. So that is the summary for the National Redemption Council's economic policies. Now today our focus is going to be on the Supreme Military Council 1, SMC 1. Now the SMC 1 ruled Ghana from October 1975 to July 1978. Now the situation or the transition from the National Redemption Council to SMC1 can be likened or can be compared to, let's say, a football game whereby, let's say, the first 11, they have played the first half of the game and the coach makes substitutions into the team. So new players are brought on board. In football, so you would ask yourself, why should the coach make changes into the game? If your first 11 is playing so well and if they are leading, sometimes you like to keep them playing. Other times, maybe because you have a difficult match after this one, you want to reserve some of the strong players. So here, coming to Ghana around October 1975, the members of government or the members of the National Redemption Council were asked to step down, and new members of the military joined a champion in government. So my question to you is, what does this change from NRC to SMC1 represent? Historians actually differ in their perspectives on this change. So the question is, does this change from NRC to SMC1 represent that the military always spoke with one voice? Because then it appeared the transition was peaceful, was smooth. New members just came on board to join a champion. There wasn't any bloodshed. Or does it mean that there was disunity among the military in the sense that if they trusted those in government, well, they should have allowed them to rule. To you, what does this change represent? Does it mean that, well, the military wanted to institutionalize themselves in government, entrench themselves in power? Because if you looked at the National Liberation Council that ousted Nkrumah from power, they handed power later on to the Progress Party in 1969. So this group, the National Redemption Council, which is changing itself into a Supreme Military Council, are they trying to keep themselves in power? Are they trying to institutionalize the political power within the armed forces? What are they trying to do? So I'll leave you to put forward your own perspective on what this change represents. Now let's move forward. Now, it is important for you to note that the SMC was ushered into office amidst agitations for change to civilian rule. So you have a situation whereby the SMC one was ushered into office at a time that people were calling for the structure of government to be handed over to civilians. But the leader of SMC1, a champion, denounced these agitations, rejected, neglected all these agitations and criticisms, and to the extent of even trying to label some of these political opponents as reactionary elements. For some Ghanaians, the National Redemption Council, all right, the NRC, had even detained people. There were unlawful detentions, there were military tribunals. So for the civilians, it was time for a champion to hand over power to a civilian government. But here comes the case. They have changed themselves from being members of the National Redemption Council into a new group called the Supreme Military Council. So things were not that smooth for the SMC one because they've come to power at a time that people are calling for a change in government. People are calling for a civilian rule. In the midst of this, they also brought another idea forward called union government. So the SMC one made a proposal called union government, and the union government was simply an idea of creating a future government structure that should consist of soldiers, police, and civilians. So now the question is, does the SMC want to entrench itself in power? Because then you are talking about creating a structure of government for the future, and you are saying that should consist of soldiers, police, and civilians. So that means that the members of the armed forces do not intend leaving the ruling structure, or do not intend leaving government to civilians. They want to partner with civilians and the police to rule. So this idea was not welcomed by many Ghanaians. They reacted against this idea. But the champion went ahead to form a committee on this union government. The committee was supposed to collate views on this union government. At the end of the work of the committee, some recommendations were made. The first recommendation was that a national government should be formed, and this government should not be made up of any army or military members. That is, there shouldn't be any national government which should comprise of army or military involvement. That was the first recommendation of the committee. Now, the second recommendation also was that there has to be a plebiscite. People would have to vote on the proposal so that the government can be sure if people are in support of it or not. Right. So the referendum took place, and whilst the voting exercises were ongoing, the government led by Champon issued a command that all the ballot boxes should be moved to a central place for counting. And the Electoral Commission at that time rejected this idea and also gave a counter announcement by saying that the counting or the ballot boxes should be kept at the polling centers, and the counting should be done in front of everyone for everyone to see. Now, the moment this happened, a champion sent soldiers or dispatched soldiers to the polling centers and also into the office of the Electoral Commissioner. And it is known that the Electoral Commissioner had to escape through the window. So at this point, you have a plebiscite that is going on, but there is no Electoral Commissioner. So the government had to appoint a new Electoral Commissioner who subsequently declared that the idea or the proposal of a union government was approved by 56%. Well, I leave you to judge the authenticity, the reliability, the fairness of this plebiscite, looking at the circumstances that surrounded it. So, going forward, Acheampong and his SMC1 government, they have been able to get an approval from the people concerning the union government. But before he could implement the union government idea, he was ousted from power. He was forced to resign in a bloodless palace coup. And so the idea of union government did not take place. Now he was succeeded by General Frederick William Kwesi Ekufu. So this ends the story of the SMC1. Thank you for staying with me throughout this lesson. In our next lesson, we'll be looking at the SMC2, which was led by General Frederick William Kwesi Ekufu. Thank you. See you next time.